Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Teniola and today we're going to be talking about personal statements. So if you're wondering why I'm looking down at my phone, as per usual, I've got a plan just of everything that I want to say just on here. So I'm going to take you through, guys, a quick run through of the plan I have for this video. I'm going to be doing 1, common mistakes, 2, I'm going to go through the structure, 3, and then I'm going to explain my personal statement. I applied for history and I'm now studying at Cambridge, going into my final year. So I applied for uni in, I think, 2018. Yeah, 2018 is when I started. And then I'm also going to give you just a little bit of advice in response to COVID and the current coronavirus situation, because I know it's been really hard for a lot of people and you haven't been able to, do your typical summer schools. So number 1, common mistakes. Now, when it comes to common mistakes, it's really easy to make very basic mistakes when it comes to your personal statement. Mistake number 1 is too much description and not enough explicit connection. So when you're doing your personal statement, you want to make sure that you're not just describing things that you've learned that have made you fall in love with your subject. You want to make sure that you're describing things in a way that lead to action and show that you've taken action from certain things that you've learned. Obviously, all advice I say, I will go through examples and I'll probably list maybe a link to my personal statement if you guys all want to read it, if that helps any of you applying for humanities. So the second common mistake is focusing too much on specifics rather than giving a broad overview of your interests. Now, your personal statement is going to be sent to like 5 unis, so you want to make sure that you're not doing anything too specific that's going to make the course at different unis seem that they don't apply to you. So I know for me, I was applying for history, so I wanted to make sure that I applied or made sure that I was really interested in broad themes rather than really specific topics. It's not hard and it wouldn't be frowned upon, but at the same time you want to make sure that you're showing that you viewed your subject in a very broad way, very everyday, if that makes sense, that shows that you don't just see it as a discipline that you learn in school. If we take science per se, say maybe you're not just looking at the cell when you're rambling on about how much you love the cell, you want to talk about it in application, and in that you'll get a nice broader view of biology, let's say. Now, the third common mistake is focusing too much on one aspect of your subject and not, again, looking at it in a broad way. So this is basically, especially for humanities, this is crucial, not addressing the wider debate and fundamental disciplinary ideas that kind of spew off from your subject. So I know for me, I didn't want to, let's say, just focus on, I don't know, German history. From German history, there's a huge kind of philosophical debate that goes off of that, and that really shows that you're taking your subject at extra length. But I think once you start university, you'll realise that this is actually quite basic for a lot of subjects. This is just how you should be viewing your subject, again, in a very broad sense. Now, for the structure, let me move to the side. I don't know if I can put like a infographic, but if I can do that, if I don't, anyway. So you want your personal statement to be 80% academic and 20% extracurricular, volunteering, etc. So that's the way I did mine, and for Oxbridge especially, this is what they'll tell you if you apply to any Oxbridge college, and if you go to any open days or master classes, they always say 80-20, and that's kind of what they prefer, because the more academic your personal statement is, the better. But at the same time, you want to show that you're still a well-rounded person. They always say this, well-rounded person. They want to make sure that you're someone who isn't just in their books 24/7, someone who, maybe does a bit of sport. And how I did it was I did a few paragraphs talking about my initial interest in history. I think I also talked about my A-levels. I talked about a little bit of extra reading I did, and then the 4th paragraph was then volunteering. Volunteering and other stuff that I did that I found really relevant. In your 80% academic, you want to include books, your A-levels, summer schools, programs, activities, TED Talks, and magazines and articles. Now that is a key one, especially now. That's a key one, especially now because of COVID. You want to make sure that you're using or making the most of all the online articles there is, basically anything that's available for you to read. You want to make sure that you're showing them that you have read it. And again, you don't have to be the master of your subject. You just want to show a willingness to learn, and the easiest way to show an initial willingness to learn is by just getting yourself out there and reading something. I think, again, for humanities, I specifically recommend maybe getting a British Library membership card. I got one before I started uni, and that library literally has access to every single book. I think it has a copy of like every single book published in the UK, so that's like a great one. If you're not in London, I think, again, just be using online resources, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers. I think my teacher gave me a PDF of this one book about religious history that she just had lying around. Because remember, your teachers have gone to university, they've done something, and they're gonna have books lying around as well. Now for your 20% etc, extracurricular, also co-curricular. So extracurricular is more like sports, and then co-curricular is stuff like societies and other things that kind of can be easily related to your subject, but at the same time are still very extracurricular, like debating. It can be achievements, hobbies, positions of responsibility, life experiences if relevant. And this is a really good tip, especially if you're someone who, you know, feels like they're gonna ramble on, is if there's anything you feel like you want to add in but you don't have space for to put in your personal statement, because I can't remember the character count, but if you want to make sure you want to get in there, get your teacher to put it in their reference. It's another way for you to just make sure you get everything that's good about you in, but it doesn't have to detract from your love of your subject and the kind of intellectual academic focus that your personal statement should be on. So I think for me, I told my form tutor, I think, to put the fact I did NCS and I had worked a couple of jobs as well, temporary jobs, in my in my reference, because that was basically just how I wanted to do it. I didn't think it was relevant enough to be putting in my personal statement directly, but it's a good way to kind of slip it in and be like, yeah, I'm a hard worker. Okay, so I'm now going to take you guys to section 3, which is just explaining my personal statement a bit more. For anyone applying for history, if you want, you can skip this part, but humanities, it's all very relevant. For me, I gave it to around 3 teachers. I gave it to my form tutor and I think 2 history teachers. You should kind of limit the amount of people that you give it to. You don't want to give it to too many people, because if you do, you'll get jumbled. And I think I finished my personal statement, my first draft, by the start of my first term of year 13. So I was really ready to go. But considering how it was from the end of summer to the final product, very, very different. So don't sweat it too much. Just make sure you have enough time to keep redrafting. But again, limit the amount of people so you're not redrafting for like 10 years. I think one thing that I would also recommend is adding your own artistic flair. So I know for me, I kind of included a quote. You don't have to. It's something that's quite common. People do tend to include quotes in their personal statement. But I wanted to include 2 quotes. So I made sure that they were linked in a way that kind of showed that I understood my subject through and through. So if you do read mine, I basically talked about the Socratic Paradox, which is by Plato Socrates, or Plato Socrates, don't hit me on this please. But basically is the saying is, the one thing I know is that I know nothing. And the one book that I read for my personal statement was What is History by E.H. Carr, which is slightly dated now, to be honest, but it was quite good as an introduction to the historical discipline. And the quote I took from that was, I think, something about the historian must having a necessary ignorance. So I kind of linked the fact that since the one thing I know is that I know nothing, and that the historian must have a necessary ignorance to be able to make the most of their sources, let's say, I linked the two in a way saying that ignorance is actually a good thing, because it makes you want to learn more, inquire more, and never trust in yourself too much, or else you start kind of seeing in the sources what you already believe rather than finding out new things. So that's how I linked it. But again, only because I was able to find that link. If not, I probably wouldn't have had a quote to use. So again, it's not anything like super, you must include a quote if you're applying for history or any other subject. I think just anything that seems sincere is great. A quote is one way to do that, but again, there are many other ways. Another tip I also have for my personal statement that I did was kind of having an overarching theme. I think for me, I wanted to make, you know, the necessary ignorance thing an overarching theme. So I basically put that in my first paragraph and my end paragraph, the 2 different quotes. And the body was basically just, you know, the kind of rambling on a bit about the extra reading I did and everything else. And I think especially another tip, if you're applying for Oxbridge or any place that interviews so sciences as well, is just be 100% confident before you send it off, because I think it's so easy to kind of be basically led by teachers who kind of feel like they know exactly what they're doing. But at the end of the day, this is you, and if you have to sit in front of someone and argue what you've said, or an argument that you've put inside your personal statement, you want to be able to at least believe it or know how to back it up. So do read the books that you put in your personal statement. Make sure that you are very sincere with everything that you say, and because it has to be so sincere, it just takes time. So now it is, what day? So I'm filming this on the 12th of August. So I don't think I started my personal statement until, or maybe around this time or September time, before I went, whenever school starts. Basically just making sure you start a few weeks before. You had the whole summer, what reading have you done? And I think now especially is a good time to kind of just get things going. If you're feeling a bit like, oh, I need to do stuff, just pick up a book, read a chapter. Watch TED Talks are a really great way to kind of get ideas in really quickly. Google your favorite academics and maybe find a new person who inspires you in your subject. That's one really good way. So now for my final section. So this is in response to COVID and coronavirus, everything. I know you know, it's been such a horrible time for all of us. We've all been stuck inside, but again, I think the main tip is remember that we've all been in the same boat and that you're not at any disadvantage, because literally everyone in the entire world has had to battle with this virus. So again, don't feel disheartened, don't feel discouraged by the fact that you maybe haven't been able to go and explore as much or read as much if you haven't had access to books, because access to books is a huge issue throughout the whole country if you don't live in a major city, let's say, or have a good library near you. So I think my first tip for humanities would be taking the time, now that things are starting to really open up, is take the time to go to exhibitions and museums, and those are a really good way to get lots of information in a really nice and easy way in a day, let's say. And I think especially because of coronavirus, museums and different exhibitions are taking in a lot less people nowadays, meaning you actually get the chance to see a lot of pieces of art and a lot of different exhibitions in a very spacious way. Like, you won't be having to battle in with different people. Sorry, you won't have to like battle to get in to see your favorite artist, to take a picture, because again, there's just a less amount of people, which is great obviously for you guys if it's something that you're interested in, because it means that you can just spend a bit more time and you don't have to worry about being in too much of close contact with people as well, because I think museums and exhibitions are really good at making sure that they stick to the coronavirus guidelines that the government has set out. My friend works in an exhibition and I think that's exactly what they're doing. It's in Shoreditch right now. It's called The Stars Are Bright exhibition. I'll link it down below if it's something that you're interested in. It's basically looking at Zimbabwean artwork from the 1950s, I think. Yeah, so now my final tip in kind of the age of coronavirus is, if you're a science student, I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is literally just take your subject and make it personal. Start something at home. Show the everyday application of science, because science is something that is, again, in our everyday lives, and that's very easy for you to kind of maybe start your own project, look at something, look at new things, and see that you're really seeing how your subject affects you in everyday life, and that's great. So I'd just like to thank you for watching this video. If you do have any requests whatsoever, please do comment them down below. I don't go back to university in October. Oh, sorry, I don't go back to university until October. So I'm basically free now for any application help. If you want to email me, if you want Instagram, DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is down below. So I've had, I think, a few people do that already. So again, if that's something that if you need any application help, I'm more than happy for the next 2 months. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.